Hey Daffs, are you excited?
I am super excited.
This is the Rick and Daffs podcast, and we are here unscripted and raw.
We absolutely are.
And this is the last episode of 2018.
Which has been a heck of a year.
It's been just the craziest year
It's
of
been a
all
pretty
the
wild
years. And we're going to wrap it up on a high note.
Yep.
With the Worst Bosses Championship. 16 entered. Only 2 are left.
Yeah.
And only 1 will survive to lift the championship trophy and be immortalized as the worst boss of all time. We have Tobias Funke, the Cinderella of Cinderellas.
Which he would love being called a Cinderella story.
Coming, I'm sure he would, coming from obscurity to take on the number overall, the third seed overall, Voldemort.
He who must not be named.
He who must not be named. And if we look at the path these two have taken,
They have left a trail of destruction in their wake.
Voldemort went through Qui-Gon Jinn and just fustigated him. Mm-hmm. Then he took on Nero. Mm-hmm. Also, that was a little bit closer. That was probably his toughest test.
Yeah.
And then he just mopped the floor with Cruella de Vil. It wasn't even close.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Tobias Funke took down number 2 seed overall, Jon Snow in the Westeros region.
And it wasn't even like it was pretty well done.
It was a beating.
Yeah.
A heavy sack beating.
Yeah.
Filled with doorknobs and burlap. It was crazy. Anyways. What are you laughing about over there?
I'm just imagining all the the slip of tongues and whatnot that Tobias would probably say, and we would laugh if he was saying it instead we're saying it.
Then he went on to have a really, really close match with Vader.
Yes, he did.
He won on technicalities, and that technicality was runoff.
Yep, we liked him more.
And then he went on to take down our overall number 1 seed, Hook. So he has the ability to play up to his competition.
Yeah.
I really don't know how this is going to end, to be honest with you. I could see either one. We've got one who is maniacal, violent, and just basically pure evil. Mm-hmm. And then another one who is shockingly evil, despite his best efforts to not be.
Yeah, he really doesn't want to be a bad guy.
But he just is.
He just destroys whatever team he's rooting for. That's the problem. Is he's like, oh, I'll help you out. And then he shows up and just ruins everything. Oh, well.
Yeah, so it's anybody's game. Mm-hmm. Well, shall we begin?
We definitely should begin.
And I think we failed to mention this in our last episode, but we're running off of the MIST scale. And what does that stand for, my friend?
Misery, inconsistency, status, and danger, with status being inverted.
I.e., if you have a good job, you get less points.
Yes.
Puppy murderer, for example.
Gives you a full 5.
You get full 5. If you're a slaver in misery, you could get
Definitely
5 points.
5, for sure.
And in danger, I mean, inconsistency is fairly clear, but danger, it has to be from gross negligence, incompetence, or just lack of basic human decency.
Total disregard for human life.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how you get. So best score is 40. We each give 5. And we'll be going from there. And much like the last rounds, we will be deciding this. Sudden death with the spin of a wheel. What job will they do? Ooh.
Charge nurse!
Wow. A job we're both somewhat familiar with.
I don't really see my charge nurse that often.
I don't even know how you become a charge nurse of an outpatient unit. There's no physical unit.
Like literally my charge nurse, they're just at the plaza, like ready on the phones, and they like handle, essentially like when there's a problem, you call in and then they'll try to handle over the phone. And if they need to, they'll help out and they'll go out and they'll do visits, which is kind of cool. But that's pretty much it. It's like being a regular nurse, but you just get more phone calls.
So I think we'll do it off of my charge nurse.
Yeah, no, it's definitely floor nurse.
They are going to codes sometimes rapid responses, which is a little like a soft like code blue.
Yep. They make sure everyone gets their breaks. They make sure everyone has a relatively even workload.
They help it out. They also will step in if something goes horribly awry. They're kind of your liaison to other areas of the hospital, things like that. The idea of Tobias or Voldemort being a charge nurse is quite horrifying.
Oh, yeah. Neither one is going to be a good addition to the team.
Although, you know what's funny about this is I'm fairly certain that somewhere in almost every hospital, some charge nurse has been referred to as Voldemort.
Yes. Oh, guaranteed.
So, I mean, there's already like some sort of precedence. I feel like there's something about this job that will just feel very
Intuitive.
yeah to him. Who do you want to start with? Do you want to start with the underdog, or do you want to start with the known commodity, the blue blood, the man who we're not shocked is here? Voldemort.
The man without a plan.
The man. So Tobias.
Tobias. Yeah, I think Tobias should be a good one to start because I feel like I roughly know how Voldemort would be a charge nurse. I think we're going to need to spend more time delving in to how Tobias would ruin being a charge nurse.
Well, one, he would not take any of the illnesses seriously.
No, he would patch Adams it without any of the actual medical knowledge.
You are exactly right. That's exactly what he would do.
Let's turn that frown upside down. You can't. It's taped that way. That's a ventilation tube. Please stop touching that.
I would be very fearful. He would also have to like respond to bad like situations, and people would be looking to him for guidance. Mm-hmm. You're right, though. He would definitely try and patch Adams things that he has no idea what he's doing and has no qualifications for. And he would be like, let's sing a song. Like, meanwhile, their family member is dying and they're like getting CPR.
Yeah. I imagine he would be there when you don't want him there. And when you really need him there, he'd be like hiding somewhere crying.
I can't imagine a situation where I would want him there.
Like if you need
to be honest with
if you need to pass the buck to your charge nurse,
oh yeah,
and just be like, all right, this crazy family, Tobias, you got to deal with them, and like at least then, no matter how badly it goes, you can leave the room.
No, but here's the other thing: is that he would turn on you. Mm-hmm. Like he'd be like, I think this is totally reasonable that they should be able to take their family member who's critically ill out in the wheelchair to go smoke a cigarette in the lobby, and you're like, no.
Who doesn't enjoy a good puppy? Let's enjoy one here now together. There's like this oxygen everywhere. No.
The whole unit blows up.
Pretty much.
I've literally had people who have burned their faces because they wouldn't stop smoking.
Yeah.
So that's pretty terrible. Man, he's so bad. I'm just
really
continuously shocked by how terrible he is.
Not to mention the fact that like a charge nurse is supposed to make sure everyone gets their breaks. So if like let's say Rick needs a lunch and I'm just coming back from lunch, Rick makes sure that Tobias would make sure that Rick gives me a handoff of my patients, who needs meds right this moment, who's going to be fine for the next half hour, checking in, all that kind of stuff. And that's an ICU. On a floor, you would have like up to 4 or 5 patients for the other nurse.
Yeah,
so
up to 6 sometimes.
I'll be watching like 9 patients, my 5 or my 4 and his 5, going back and forth. There is no way we all get our lunches. Also, there's no way all those patients are seen, because usually the charge nurse helps watch the patients that are a little extra here or there.
Sometimes. It depends on what's going on, to be honest.
I 100%.
Like, certain aspects of your job would be completely unchanged, but it would be more like you just want him to be gone as much as possible.
Like, I guarantee you there's a time where he's like, take a lunch, I got it all. And would just like give every single one of the nurses their lunch, which a good nurse would know they shouldn't do. But if he didn't tell you that everyone else also all had nurses, you'd have all 6 nurses from the floor run into each other down at the cafeteria line and be, oh God, no.
You're right. He would send everybody at the same time.
And then be rushing back, and like you just see like him skipping to the sounds of beeping monitors as everyone's coding, having no idea what he just did. People would literally die.
He would also be like giving like patients that had no business being like together, like to like a nurse that already had they'd be like, oh, this person is oh wait, they're ventilated and you had to paralyze them because their lungs are so terrible, and you're flipping them over because that helps their ventilation as well. Oh, that's perfect. That'll go great with this new head bleed that I've got coming. Wait, what? Oh, don't worry about it. You're only doing every 15-minute neurological checks on this one, right? Right. Okay, great. No, I can't do that. Sure you can. You just got to believe. And then he'd start singing a song.
That's the thing.
You'd be like, I am going to murder. There'd be a lot of assaults.
There'd be so many assaults. And can you imagine?
But nurses assaulting him.
Yes. Can you imagine the way he would handle isolation patients? He'd be like, what? We're making these people feel like second-class citizens by putting on these crazy garments. I'm not afraid to go ahead and look, I'm shaking his hand. And he'd be like, you now have every disease known to man. You're not allowed to leave the room. You're now a menace.
He's now in quarantine.
Right?
Or either that or he goes in there and like he just panics and starts like vomiting, and you're just like, that guy doesn't have any, like, no. He doesn't have any infection that you could get. Unless somehow you've acquired aspiration.
He's actually discharging. He's all better. I don't know
He's
what
going home.
Yeah, it would be crazy. The only benefit you can say is that he would either, unfortunately, lose his job because of a patient death very quickly.
Well, unfortunate in some ways, but it would kind of be like an A-bomb scenario where you'd
save more lives in the long run.
So many A-bomb situations in this podcast.
Lots of them.
Of this Worst Bosses
or
playoff.
Much more mercifully, he would contract a horrible disease because of no isolation precautions, and he would die much too soon. And then you'd have a regular charge nurse. Those are literally the only situations, and both of them involve a death.
No. You're totally missing one. An obvious one. One, assaulted by nurses, so he's off. Mm-hmm. Two, very much similar, assaulted by family member of patient when he's doing things that are horribly dangerous and being accidentally horribly offensive, and then they assault him. And then everybody's kind of like, it's that weird situation where we're all like, yeah, he did get beat up, but he's such a, did we actually see anything?
Yeah, right.
I specifically said that there was a bar of soap on the floor and that it was very slippery and that maybe somebody might trip on it. And then Tobias tripped on it and that
16 times.
That guy tried to help him, and they're like, by jamming his fist in his eye. Well, he missed. He was just trying to grab him.
Good Samaritan law. You can't punish someone for trying to help.
No, we didn't see anything.
I mean, even in the show, Tobias is sued because he goes over and starts performing CPR on a man who was just asleep at the pool sunbathing and cracks his chest. Do you remember that episode?
Yeah, he would do that all the time at the hospital.
Yeah, and he would do that all the time. He's not even that kind of doctor. And he did that in the show. He would be doing CPR on everyone.
You're right. Okay.
And you would have to deal with him for as long as he is there.
Misery.
5. I would hate my job, and yet I feel like I couldn't leave because I have to save my patients from him.
So what's scary about this is that I have worked in a hospital where it wasn't this bad, but I was terrified of the doctors because they were very unsafe. And it's not my current hospital. So if anybody that knows me knows where I work, it's not where I'm working now. But it was terrifying because I literally felt like the doctors were just as dangerous as whatever was going on. And it was like the most stressful thing in the world because literally it's like on other jobs, you're like, well, it's not life or death. But this, unfortunately, was life or death. And having Tobias in that situation would be terrible.
Yeah.
Especially if he's in charge every time.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It would be my nightmare. It would be absolutely horrible. And I would feel personally responsible for any horrible thing that happened. And yet I'm still like the subordinate of this person who's giving me orders and telling me what to do. Like I would get no breaks. I wouldn't be able to do handoffs.
You'd be afraid to take a break.
Yeah.
You'd be like, okay, thank God the shift is over because somebody is competent is in charge tonight.
Anytime where I feel responsible and feel like I need to call 911 for an emergency, but I can't call 911 because they'd be like, you're already in the ICU. That would be...
Is it worse than slavery?
No, nothing's worse than slavery. Is
4.75.
4.75
So
guaranteed.
it's 9.5.
9.5?
Yeah. That's a pretty high score.
That's a very high score.
Jeez. All right. And of course, this time I'm trying to figure out a way
Let's
to do
just
this.
blaze through and
Blaze
don't
through.
give us any ideas.
No numbers.
Yep.
Okay. Inconsistency. Well, here's the other thing that I just thought of. A traditional nurse's schedule is 12-hour shifts. So you might have, like, you're going to have a day where he's not there and you're like, oh, thank God, it's fine. And then he comes back and you're like, that's inconsistent too, because you get used to him, like, or you don't get used to it, but you get like a small reprieve from the horrors. And so you know what it could be like. And then he comes back and it's horribly dangerous.
Yep.
And you're right. He's going to be like going into isolation rooms and then having like what is it, psychosocial. So like when you like mentally have a breakdown, but it's not from like a real disease.
Yeah. When you're
Psychosomatic.
Yeah.
He's going to have psychosomatic symptoms, or he'll go in and actually get something. He's going to be getting assaulted, giving you terrible patient assignments.
Here's the only two things you can do. You can either, one, say, oh my gosh, we have a breakout on the floor of this new disease. It only causes people to breathe fast and panic. And of course, he'd develop the symptoms. And he'd be like, we put you in isolation right now. And you have to throw him in an isolation room by himself and then lock the door, and then that's it. Or, Rick, you put me in a hospital gown in a bed and then say, hey, we're rushed. Can you please take this patient? It's kind of like a field trip all the way down to the Echo.
Yeah, but he's in charge, so he would never.
Lab.
He was in charge.
But he wouldn't know that. He would love field trips to go to, and you would just send me a fake patient to a lab that doesn't exist.
So basically,
and get rid of him for a few hours.
But what you're saying is that basically we have to go down a nurse to be safer, which is horrifying.
Yes, literally.
Jeez.
Hence why it's 9.5.
I'm giving a 5 for inconsistency.
Yes. 5.
So that's a 10. Geez, this is a terrible job for him to do.
Because he would be like,
status.
you know what the best medicine is? And we'd be like, medicine? And he'd be like, nope, that's where you're wrong. And we'd be like, oh no.
A spoonful of sugar.
What? He's diabetic. You can't do that. He's in a coma.
I definitely picture him giving. So there's this thing called DKA, where a diabetic person, their sugar gets too high and they get really sick and they end up in the ICU because we have to start them on an insulin drip, which is like it's going into an IV and we're calculating their sugars every hour and whatever else. But he would just totally ignore that, and he would be doing that Mrs. Featherbottom thing, and he would like be randomly cross-dressing one day and singing a spoonful of sugar and giving the diabetic person sugar, and
while they're an aspiration risk, while they're like they can't swallow.
Oh yeah, he'd definitely be feeding choking hazard patients.
Oh, nonstop.
If he worked in a nursing home, he would kill so many people.
Yes.
And it's almost worse because he's doing it on accident. Whereas like Voldemort, it would be on purpose. And at least you'd be like, well, at least he meant to do it.
It reminds me so much of this Reddit or this Tumblr post where someone's like, saw this guy in the, the PetSmart thing and no one had adopted him. And it's a tortoise. And he's like, so I bought him for the $10 and returned him to nature. And it shows him putting him in a river.
Oh, God.
And they're like,
Tortoises can't swim.
tortoises can't swim. That's turtles. You just drowned a tortoise. And this guy thought he did this great thing, and he just murdered this poor pet that had been living in total isolation, probably pretty happy.
And turtles don't really have a high threshold for what they want.
No, also, like, they don't live in this climate outside. They wouldn't last a single season change.
No.
That would be Tobias with human beings. He would be thinking he's helping, go out of his way, and it was accidentally murder. He would help murder. He'd murder help him.
Jeez.
There needs to be a German word for that, where you think you're doing a good thing, and instead you're bringing about the demise of someone.
That's called Hitler.
But worse than that, if it's possible. Okay, so inconsistency, full 5 for me.
Status. Here's the thing. I don't know. Maybe you'd have a better gauge on this. When you tell people you're a nurse, like, it's not a bad. People respect it.
It is the most respected profession in the nation right now.
Really?
It is.
I thought it was the most trusted.
Well, sorry, most trusted.
But trust has to go a long way.
Yeah, it does.
Here's the one thing I will say is that, and I'm not, like, I hope I'm not sounding like I'm really being judgmental, but I did read that story about that neurosurgeon who was doing those fake surgeries for the most money possible at Swedish in Seattle.
Not that we're throwing any shade.
I'm definitely throwing shade because that is very evil and terrible. And
It was also the same guy who had like 3 surgeries he was supposed to be the primary doctor on going at once.
Yeah.
And he was just checking in on all of them.
Yeah. And he was also putting unnecessary people. He was putting unnecessary things in people. He's a terrible person.
Yeah, he's in jail, I think.
I know that he's at least lost his job, thankfully. But like, if like you found out that somebody worked on that unit, would you be like, would that like lower your opinion of them? Would it raise your opinion
Heavily.
of them? Like, even if they weren't responsible, like,
There's a 0% chance it's not a scandal for the hospital. If someone finds out that this is the actions of a charge nurse,
that's true.
And what they did.
If I found out, like, oh, you worked there, well, what about that murder? That's the first thing I bring up. Hey, what about that murder surgeon? Like, or hey, what about that terrible charge nurse who killed all those people?
Yeah.
Be like, oh, you worked there. That's true. It knocks your status.
It totally does.
So, what is a nurse normally? Is it like a 2 or 3?
Yeah.
I feel like it's better than a 3.
I feel like a nurse is a 2. When you tell someone that you're a nurse, they're usually like, "Oh, right on, man."
I
That's
usually
awesome."
get a little. I think I get some brownie points for the ICU part.
I get crazy brownie points for hospice.
Really?
Oh my god! People were
Really?
like, "Oh, you are such an angel. I could never do that."
Oh, see, I don't-
People nonstop are like, "You're so great." They always tell me about whatever relative they had recently who went into hospice. I felt like it saved their life. They always say that to me, and I understand why. I 100% believe hospice is a great thing, and everyone.
You might get more brownie points than me then.
I definitely do.
Oh, wow.
Like I get Christmas presents from my patients and from families of patients who have passed on. People love,
But you have to
hospice
reject
nurses.
almost all those, right?
You do.
Unless they're like food, right?
Yeah, I'm allowed to have chocolates, but anything else has to go directly to the hospital. I had a $100 gift card for Amazon
had to turn it in.
that got usurped and used for like a potluck. So I got some money from potluck.
You
or
got
whatever.
something out of it.
Yeah, but it was like meh.
Yeah. I feel like that's just a racket too for the hospital.
It kind of is.
Anyways, that being said, yeah. So we get some brownie points for being nurses.
Yeah.
You probably get more than me, which makes me sad because I'm basically just in it for the brownie points. If you haven't noticed,
Yeah. Your job is way harder than my job
in some ways,
in a lot of ways.
in some ways,
You gotta have the really awful discussions people spend their whole lives trying to avoid. That's my job every day, all day. That's the only bad part of my job, I would say.
mine has a lot more things.
Yours has more fluids.
Mine has more fluids. Yes. Yeah, we won't go into gross nurse stories because I think that would really
We'll get
ruin
totally
it.
sidebarred.
Yeah, that would ruin it. People will turn off this episode.
Absolutely.
And we'll never listen again. So I would say it'd be normally a 2, but if you work at the murder hospital with the murder charge,
It's
I'm
not
going to say a
good.
3. I'm going to
Yeah.
say it knocks you a whole point because you'd be like, "Oh, you worked with that guy?"
Okay,
Like,
so if we're thinking regardless of which candidate we have, whether it's Tobias or Voldemort, they're going to be known as the murder nurse. Is status going to be the same?
ooh, that's a good question.
I almost feel like status is a wash.
Well, I'm not willing to do the same thing that we did with the Oompa Loompas.
Yeah.
Because I just don't know until we get there with Voldemort.
Okay.
And this is the championship. I can't just cross off a whole category
Okay.
based off of
I think that's a good decision.
possibilities. I'm going to say 3 from me.
Yeah, I'm going to say
You lose a point for being the murder unit that you worked on the murder unit.
worst comes to worst, you could just say you work for a different hospital.
Well, but
No one's going to know or check. Only like your very close friends would know. And your status probably wouldn't change with them anyways. So, I'm going to say 3.
so 2 3s.
Yep.
6. Jeez, He's doing well.
He's doing really well.
He really has brought his A game throughout this entire playoffs.
Yeah.
Which is scary because that means he was the best suited for the job he was actually doing. And he was still terrible at it.
The anal rapist.
How bad is that? That the job that you did, you were actually the best you could possibly be, and you still sucked. Like, what if, let's say you were still a pizza delivery guy because you did that during college.
Yeah.
And that was the best you could ever do, and you still sucked at it.
I honestly wonder if David Cross, the guy who plays Tobias Funke, if he would ever enjoy this episode of being like, yo, we did the math, our math, and like your character, you played him so well and he was so ingenious. He was the worst boss. And we had Voldemort, Captain Hook, freaking Vader. You crushed Vader. I want you to know that. If you want to listen, go for it. Want to plug us? Go for it.
If you don't care, that's fine too.
That's totally fine.
I just want you to know that you did such a good job.
You did such a good job.
You should tweet at him, see what he says.
Although, I mean, some actors don't like when you like talk up like their old role because they're like, I've done like 9 things since. I've been in 3 Kung Fu Panda movies since then. Like, we're still talking about Tobias? Really? Okay. So I don't know.
It depends on the person.
Yeah.
I think even the people who are healthy eventually get to the spot where they're like, this was an iconic role.
Yeah.
Like, what's his name? Guy who played Kirk, Shatner, apparently hated Captain Kirk for a long time.
Yeah.
And then he, like, realized, no, like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And this is how people will know me, and that's okay.
Yeah. I get that. Although David Cross has been in so much stuff now.
Yeah.
He's been in so much stuff. But yeah. I really like him in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Oh, yeah.
Freaking...
Wait, who is he in that?
He's the guy who is part of the family who owns the Washington Redskins.
Oh, yeah.
And he hates the name, too.
Yeah.
And,
but he basically is playing a Tobias...
Almost.
Like a loserly Tobias.
Yeah, almost. But yeah, he nails that role too. So, anyways, enough stroking of his ego.
What?
His ego. Eagle?
You did it again.
I did another time. Okay. We need to move on. This is getting rough.
You can't see this at home, but I was just pointing and laughing in his face.
Pretty standard here at the Rick and Des podcast.
When I think something is really funny, I point at it while I'm laughing, just adding insult to injury.
Danger. Can there be a more dangerous position
Here's the thing.
than someone in the ICU or in the hospital who's already precariously unhealthy and then has someone who has such a blatant disregard for learning how like medicine is?
Here's the thing, though, about danger. With this particular job, as the nurse, I might be in more danger. I'm already in some danger. Let's be honest. I personally am in some danger pretty much every day I go to work because hospital violence is actually really the most common place of workplace violence.
Oh, it's super common.
It's like
we've had bomb threats at our hospital.
I think it's like second or third after like policemen. And we're talking domestic jobs, obviously.
People bring guns in.
Firemen, policemen, but people try and beat up staff members and stuff all the time. My danger might increase, but the danger of the patients is way up.
Yeah.
But that doesn't affect me.
It does, though, because if he doesn't do isolation precautions and he exposes every single person.
I didn't even think of that.
Can you imagine if someone has like C. diff or some horrible like contagious infection and he's like, I brought brownies.
Or he decides to do a scene and he's like rolling on the floor and then comes out and gives you a hug.
And you don't know.
Yeah,
like,
you have no idea.
You just walked in.
And you're just like, why are you hugging me? And 2, why do you smell so strange? Next thing you know, you're in the hospital.
Literally every single person in that hospital's risk goes way up the second he walks in the door. And it's because of his incompetence, not because of anything.
Infection risk. I mean, I don't know how to score this because I want to give him points for all the patients he's killing, but I don't know if I can.
I 100% can.
You feel like you can?
You are just as likely.
But my danger as a nurse is up, but the patients, I mean, it's like a totally different level.
Okay, but you could lose your job and your license if for some reason all this stuff happened to one of your patients.
And he'd totally sell you out too.
He absolutely would.
To save himself.
He totally would.
I can't give it a full 5 but I'm gonna give it a solid 3.5.
I'm doing 4.5.
Wow.
Okay. Imagine him working
It's
there.
not the same though.
But imagine him
Okay,
working
hold
there
on,
for
hold
1
on.
year.
Hold on.
Is there even a 1%
hold on.
chance I'm not exposed?
Hold on. I'm just remembering. The danger is due to negligence or disregard for human life, not the situation. So he's definitely disregarding human life with his stupid role playing and rolling around and ignoring the things. And oh man, that's a tough one. This is the toughest one, and it's the championship.
I literally there's a 0%
My
chance.
conscience can't let me go over 4. 3.5.
Okay. How many people do you come in contact with every single day?
I don't even know. Probably in contact if I'm out in the world.
Out in the world.
I'm going to say at least 50.
Okay. So here you have a charge nurse who is taking care of people with the most contagious diseases, tuberculosis, shingles, you name it, has zero idea or respect for isolation precautions, and is not probably washing his hands, exposing other staff, other people in the hospital, and then going out into the public. There is going to be a massive outbreak. This is the thing that you hear about once every 4 years of some nurse who somehow managed to go all through nursing
Bring
school.
home measles.
Yeah, or the nurse in Florida who gave flu shots to 300 people, didn't change a needle once, used the same needle every single time, and just didn't realize that was not a thing that you had to do. It's how'd you get through nursing school? That's the thing. He would kill people either in the hospital, someone in the community. There's a 0% chance that you are not exposed to something dangerous in your first month.
Okay. You've convinced me to go up to 4.
4.5 for me, 4 for you.
4 for you. But you brought me up from a 3.
I take credit for that. But this is just shocking. Keep in mind, we're not even talking about the drugs he'd be dispensing.
Yeah, that's true. He would give a lot of drugs. He might even give you some drugs.
Chemo. We have radioactive agents.
I'm so torn on this one. I don't know how to score it because I totally get what you're saying, but it's not the same as I know Voldemort is going to be just straight up murdering people. Mm-hmm. And that's gotta be worse than accidentally diseasing people.
Agreed. I think when you're intentionally trying to kill someone, you're going to probably be more successful at it.
Yeah.
And at least if you get measles at home, you're going to go to a hospital, hopefully not the same hospital.
Oh my gosh. Wait a second.
Hopefully not the same hospital.
If I get sick and I end up in my own ICU, I'll just be I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
You would know how to leave AMA, and you'd walk your diseased body into the nearest hospital that wasn't that one.
You got me to 4.25. So 8.75. Okay, we got to move on. We've been having too much fun because we're 30 minutes in and all we've done is finish Tobias.
Yeah, and I need to get going because
Anyways,
it is late.
Moving on. Voldemort. Mm-hmm. He's got a long road to go. Mm-hmm. If he wants the championship. Tobias has just finished, and he did a great.
He set the bar high.
He set the bar high. So Voldemort as charge nurse, there will be very little questioning of authority. Mm-hmm. I don't know if breaks will be taken at all.
I don't think he'll allow breaks.
It depends. He might not care. He might disregard human life so much that he might just be well, screw that guy. Let him die. I think what is going to happen with him is it'll be this really sinister thing where he's telling you to let people die on purpose
because he has to work the job. He can't just leave, right?
Yeah, but he'll be testing your loyalty.
Yeah.
By being you know what, if you let that person die, I'll put another story on your house. If conversely, if you don't, well, he's got his powers. The powers come with the man.
Oh shoot, yeah, that's right. I was thinking money wise, but no, magic wise, he can definitely do that.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
They have tents that are mansions inside. That still blows my mind.
Yeah, and how the Weasleys live in a really crummy house. Meanwhile,
their tent
is nice in their home.
It makes no sense.
Anyways,
I digress.
We all know that his decorative, he's a terrible decorator. Mm-hmm. Likes everything to be dark and drab and candlelit, Which it's like really weird because like why I never understood that. Why do evil people want everything to be black? Wouldn't they just be like, "Hey, I really like this this nice bright vibrant red.
Canary yellow.
Canary yellow is a wonderful color." They've got I mean, I think real evil people in real life have very vibrant homes.
Probably. They're probably quite happy.
Yeah.
Which is so sad. But yeah, so he is.
I mean, have you ever seen Saddam Hussein's palaces? They were quite nice.
I did
and
not
he
see
was a genocidal monster.
That's true.
Anyways, moving on.
So he would definitely kill people. I imagine he would probably find out a lot about the family and then try to like shake them down for money or power or, influence of some sort. Because like that's really, he can help decide who lives and dies. And he's going to use that for his gain. And that's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I imagine that some people get preferential treatment. Like he has like the real charge nurse kind of job.
Yeah, that's the thing is I think that he is giving people preferential treatment. And I think that he's manipulating, like he literally is using his magic power to...
He could just heal you, right?
Technically he could.
Like
He
potions and stuff.
He could also, he would probably decide who's worthy and who isn't, and then kill those people that he didn't think were worthy, and then heal those people he did for money.
I guarantee you'd have someone come in who's in police custody. They're like in the ICU or brought into the hospital.
Suddenly they're loose.
He would be like, "Welcome to my army." And he'd be like,
Right.
"I'm going to heal you and get you out of jail. You're in my servitude forever." And they're like,
He'd like basically start a mafia, like a squad of like people that he's healed, and like a judge would come in and suddenly the judge would be healed, and then certain preferential rulings this would be a perfect place for him to have a base of power.
It literally is a great way to build your infrastructure because people are at their most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And if he really has the ability to heal them with potions or magic or whatever, he could just you'd be indebted to him for life, either you or your family or something like that.
And if he's and a smart tyrant would use that rather than fear,
Yeah.
because he could just easily say it. Like, or he finds out somebody's famous, their relatives in the hospital, and he says, "Oh, they could be healed, or they might meet an untimely accident unless you do whatever thing."
Chances are probably good. He'd heal them and curse them at the same time, and then be like, "Here's this drought of something tincture, and you have to continue working for me, and I'll keep giving you one once a month. But if you ever leave me, you're not getting any more."
Essentially like getting somebody addicted to cocaine.
Yeah, for real.
Ugh. Every situation with him is so terrible.
It's just awful.
It's so awful. He is the worst.
He is the so misery. Because you're as an employee.
Do I even know
You're going
what's...
to be seeing this. You're going to have an idea something bad's going on, and he's probably going to test you to see whether or not you can become part of the fold. And if you don't, you're for sure going to get the worst shifts, if not be potentially just killed. Like he's not going to allow you to work on his unit if you're not going to play ball. So I think misery, it's got to be hot. You have to turn Death Eater or you're out of a job or you're out of a life.
Yeah. I think the one thing about him that I feel like we've discovered, though, is that loyalty is more important than pretty much anything else. The thing that's going to stress me out misery-wise the most is that I know there's going to be random tests where I'm forced to do something really terrible to like gain his trust. And that's going to be really messing up your brain. And the thing is can you quit? Because will he just come find you?
Probably.
Like, or will he just let it go?
No, if you have any idea of what's going on, he's either going to murder you or erase your mind.
I'm okay with him erasing my mind.
He might erase a bunch more than just that, though. Yeah. That's the problem. You might not know how to do nursing ever again.
I mean, let's be honest. This isn't a real situation. So because if it was real, I'd just like supposed to come to work and I'd just never show up.
Yeah.
And they'd just be like, I guess he quit. And then I'd just call in and say my mom died and
Yeah.
that I have to leave and I can't come back.
Yeah.
I don't think he would care because I think that anything that he would just be like, well, they're not going to say anything. And even if they did, nobody would believe them.
Maybe Misery is super high.
I totally agree, because in this situation, you can't just quit.
No.
You're locked in. And I would be forced to do really unethical, terrible things to gain his trust, or be brutally murdered or tortured, or have my dog or son or wife or father killed.
Yeah, or turned into a snake.
Or turned into a snake.
So
Or turned into a sandwich and then eaten.
So 4.5 or 5?
No, 5. 5. I mean, this is like crazy experimental like torture, where it's like either you kill that patient by being negligent, or I'm gonna kill your wife.
Okay, yeah, 5.
That's pretty terrible.
And, well, essentially, it's slavery. You have to work and you can't quit.
Exactly. You can't quit, and you're forced to do terrible things.
Yeah,
Ugh.
5.
10 points.
Rick
Perfect
is
10.
visibly shaking and shivering over here.
It's quite disturbing.
Okay. Inconsistency.
Not that inconsistent.
This is his Achilles heel.
It was his last round as well. I can't give him super high marks. I mean, I think he's manipulating and messing with you just for his own cruel enjoyment.
And you definitely don't know what today's going to hold
I can only give
before
him
you walk in.
I can only give him a 3, because I just feel like, and I'm glad that this is basically the end, to be honest with you, because I feel like we know who he is now.
Yeah.
We know what he's going to be like. In every job, he's going to be trying to take over the world, make money, have power.
Yep.
How he's basically the only reason why he'd be doing any of this inconsistent stuff is just for being sadistic and creepy.
I got to go 3.5. And I think the only reason is because of the whole, like, he'll randomly be good to some patients and bad to other patients. And that could literally change with the same patient from day to day. Like, oh no, we're no longer healing that judge. Wait, what? Yeah, no, but you said we need to make sure he lives at all costs. Nope, not anymore.
I changed my mind.
And you're like, okay,
So what do you want
master?
me to, right? What do you want me to do?
Like, you'd have to constantly be asking him what to do next out of fear that you would do something wrong and he would be mad at you.
Yeah.
So inconsistency, 3.5 for me.
If you could somehow make the leap to just like, I have no morality, my morality is what he tells me to do, then he'd probably keep you out of prison.
You'd probably be a pretty bad nurse, though, if you just...
Oh, I'd be terrible.
Followed
Lots
or-
of people would be dying.
Nurses would make terrible Nazis. I've said it before. I've said it once. I've said it 1,000 times. I usually start my morning with, I love you, Stacy. Also, nurses would be terrible Nazis. She knows this.
Let's all recite the nurse's mantra. Oh my goodness. Why? Because they all have minds of their own?
Yeah, because nurses don't always follow orders. The whole point is that you're supposed to be a double check for
It's
the
like
doctors, for the
herding
pharmacists,
cats.
for everything. You're supposed to think critically.
Especially ICU nurses.
Yeah. You think critically. You don't just do what it says on the paper.
Unlike Nazis.
Who just follow orders.
Or whatever a fancy, like, fake passport says.
Yes.
In that Rolf Wallenberg case.
Roll Wallenberg.
Yeah, Rawl. Yeah.
The best guy ever. Roll Wallenberg.
Saved between like 50 and 100,000 Jewish people in Hungary.
Yeah, way more than Oscar Schindler. Does not get enough credit. I recommend you listen to the Behind the Bastards podcast about him. It's great.
Although
You'll love
he's
it.
considered a non-bastard.
No, he's considered a good guy. It was their Christmas special, so they did the opposite.
They did the opposite. And that's good.
Quick shout out to those guys.
Anywho, I can only give him a 3. And you are going with
3.5.
6.5, which coincidentally is the same score he got last round.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Status. Again, we're working in the murder hospital. But I think your status is far worse. Because eventually, like, if anybody even finds out, eventually they will find out. And then you've worked, like, people are afraid of you,
Yeah.
/ like,
You're the mafia / murderer.
yeah.
Because
that-
he'll make you do it. It was
that
way worse than
Is that
having
less points or more points? That's
more points because it's a worse thing, right? Because it's inverted. You just explained to me earlier.
but people.
so, like,
But since people are afraid of you, like, are they giving you more respect?
oh,
Like, you're a Death Eater essentially.
Yeah, which again, that's a great example because they were hated, but also
Feared.
They were revered
Yeah,
because
because
people
of
wouldn't get on the
how
bad
afraid,
side of them.
Yeah, because they were afraid. So what does that mean? I don't know how to judge this.
Is that a wash? Does that even out then? I don't even.
The fear level is tough to take into account because, like I said, nurse is a baseline too. But then if you're like working at the hospital where I feel like it would actually make it less because people would be afraid that if their family member went there, they would remember you.
But the gig wouldn't be up for quite some time. And so you'd probably be known as like the best hospital that saved that judge's life and like
true.
totally reversed it. So people would be like, "That's amazing. You work at the best ICU ever." And then
Yeah.
eventually you'd crash and burn. Everyone would know you're horrible.
Yeah, but they'd still be afraid.
Yeah. It's like
It's a weird. I'm going to give a 1.5.
I'm going to give it 2.
Okay, fair enough.
It's like a Bernie Madoff. Everyone loves you until they hate you.
Yeah, that's fair. 3.5. Bad status.
Yep.
Danger. Do we even need to go into this?
5.
Yeah.
He'll kill you. You'll kill people. Everyone kills people. Everyone dies.
Maybe the hospital gets shot up. He sacrifices you when the cops come.
Assuming he doesn't like bring in Dementors for some reason.
I honestly don't have any clue who's going to win.
See, he's got 2 10s on his side. That's the big thing. I feel like Tobias had better odds overall.
I need to, before we even start calculating, decide whether I like my status score or not. You know what? I'm going to change mine to 2 to match yours because I feel like it just feels right.
Okay. I feel like that's a good score because I think you really would be. You'd be like the number 1 hospital. There would be like, you'd be on Good Morning America and being like, yeah, our charge nurse is great. Our doctors are great. We're just the best unit. And like celebrities would want to go, if they have anybody, they'd go to your ICU. And then eventually when it turns out it was all crap,
Right.
you'd be.
So, what's your gut feeling? As we come to the conclusion of this season,
I think Tobias takes it, but I'm kind of surprised.
I
I kind of think Voldemort should because he's just evil. And I feel like I want to believe that the worst boss is intentionally evil.
don't stop believing.
But honestly, the worst boss might think that they're doing good. And that might
I think
be
that's-
what makes them so bad.
That's what makes them so evil. Oh, that's even scarier. Maybe
That's just
Tobias
the
is
worst.
actually just an evil genius this whole time.
I just don't even know.
I'm sure when we listen back to these, we'll see big changes in our scoring as we went across.
Yeah.
But that's inevitable.
Yeah.
I think that this was a great championship with a great job matchup.
Either way, hats off to Tobias and Voldemort and a nod of the head to Captain Hook.
Yes.
He could just as easily
He
been
won.
here.
He won the supporters shield.
Oh yeah.
I really feel like that was our championship.
Heisman Trophy.
Just to be honest, I felt like that in a certain extent was our championship because I really felt like Hook and Tobias just
They had a
represented
Good back and forth.
the what could have been.
Yeah.
So that being said, are you ready for the scores?
I'm ready for the scores.
What does your gut tell you?
I think it's still Tobias, but I kind of want it to be Voldemort. Even though I love Tobias, I've been his cheerleader this whole time. I don't want to believe that someone who wants to do good is really the worst.
So evil. Voldemort. He scored 10 for misery.
Yeah.
6.5 in consistency, 4 for status, and another 10 for danger because he's just out just murdering and killing people.
So that's like what, 30?
It's 30.5.
30.5.
Meanwhile, the number 15 overall seed, Tobias, 9.5 for misery, full 10 for inconsistency, 6 for status, and an 8.75 for danger, bringing him at 34.25.
So Tobias takes it.
Tobias Funke is the worst boss of all. He is the equivalent of the wild card team that makes it into the playoffs and goes all the way to the championship. He has completed his Cinderella story.
He is one of my favorite characters.
Mine too. And I'm
Like between both in literary or in movies or TV or media.
I am amazed.
I just love him.
I just don't even know what to say. To be honest with you, I am shocked at the results. And I think that this was a really fitting ending because I really feel like it was a really tightly contested match.
It was. It absolutely was.
It could have gone either way. But I can't argue with the results because I've seen Tobias consistently does a terrible job at every job you give him.
Regardless of what job he gets.
He will do a bad job.
Here we go. We'll run over some quick ones off the one. Jobs he would be terrible at. Paper company boss, yes. Willy Wonka, absolutely. Head chef, no doubt. Game show host, maybe the only one that wouldn't be a total train wreck immediately. Charge nurse we've seen. 911 operator, football coach, pope, news anchor, sports ref, palace guard, sheriff. Sheriff would be hilarious.
He
was
that.
a sheriff, that's right.
He did a terrible job.
I mean, everything on
The
here.
only jobs that he's even remotely not terrible at is because it makes it nearly impossible for you to hurt people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even football coach. Like if he was a football coach,
You would just have a bad team.
So many people would get injured. So many.
They would, but they'd have like a dance number. They would do their own halftime show. People would still show up to the games. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, fair enough. But he's just a really bad boss. Throughout all categories, he's just terrible.
But he's a good person. That's the best part about it, is he wants to be a good person, he's kind, and he tries to be considerate, and he doesn't want to be mean to people.
And he is the worst boss.
And he's the worst fucking boss on earth.
It took us all year to find him.
Yep.
But we found him, the worst boss.
But there you are.
Congratulations to Tobias Funke, this season's winner of the worst bosses. He went through so many challenges, and he persevered.
Yep.
Through his just ineptitude and negligence and short-sighted behaviors.
Tobias, you came from behind and blew us all away.
I think that's a perfect way to end the show.
As always.
You forgot to say away.
Yeah, right? Literal. Again, away. Yeah, I love that line.
Okay. For the end of season 4, I'm Rick.
I'm Daphs.
And we'll be back. Have a good one.